So recently I bought an 8Bitdo SN30 controller and also a Hori fighting commander because I wanted to do a comparison between the two. These two retail for similar prices, around $50 US, and also compare it to the Nintendo Switch Pro controller as well. I wanted to see how these all perform. Now, if you look online, you'll actually find a lot of high praise for the 8Bitdo SN30 and the SN30 Pro. Problem with these review videos is that they don't really go too in-depth into the controller itself and actually using the controller with games that require a fast amount of responsiveness. So in all these videos, what you'll find is a general overview about the features of the controller, and maybe they'll test it out with some games. In one of the videos, I believe this guy from Linus Tech Tips, he tested it out with Super Mario World for like a brief minute or so. But that's not really enough to actually test out the controller's full capabilities and the responsiveness, especially for the D-pad. Now, the analog control sticks I get, maybe it could be pretty good, but the D-pad is actually what's really important for retro games. And I find none of these reviews really go in depth about how good the D-pad is. They'll often say stuff like the D-pad is really clicky, the D-pad is responsive or doesn't have much lag, but they don't really play really intense games with it. They don't play King of Fighters 95, they don't play Street Fighter 2 Turbo, they don't play all these really demanding games that would need fast responsiveness from the D-pad. Super Mario World is not the best test of the D-pad because that's not a really intense game. You really need to play an intense game like Street Fighter or like King of Fighters or like Samurai Showdown in order to actually know how good and responsive the D-pad is. So what I've done is I've got my friend Eric. He's basically a fighting enthusiast. He's been in the tournament scene before, so he's very highly skilled with fighting games, and I've gotten him to test out the Hori fighting commander as well as the 8Bitdo SN30, and I think he's going to be actually playing these really competitive games. In this video, actually, he'll be playing Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the hardest difficulty, which really requires very fast responsiveness from the D-pad in order to actually test out the D-pad and the controller. So I think this will be a really good test for really competitive players. How good is the 8Bitdo SN30 versus the Hori fighting commander for something like a fighting game, which requires very fast movement and responsiveness from the controller. So that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to find out how good is it. It doesn't really match up to what these reviewers say it is. So again, here's another example of video I found online about the 8Bitdo SN30 Pro, and he says it's the best Nintendo Switch controller for 2021. Well, how is it the best? He's not talking anything about the responsiveness of the controls. He's not talking about the D-pad or the face buttons or the analog sticks. Instead, he's just showing all the features of the controller. So that doesn't actually tell us anything about how good the actual controller is. So this is what I'm talking about. A lot of these reviewers, they might say that this is the best controller, best Switch controller. It's really, really good and recommend it and stuff. But a lot of the reviews don't really have a lot of substance to actually show why. Right? They're just showing you the features of the actual controller. Doesn't really tell us how it compares to other controllers. So yeah, to me, it's not very useful. All these reviewers seem to have very high praise for this controller, but does it really stand up to the rigors of a very intense game like Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo? Let's find out. Okay, so which is the hardest?
Yes, and a lot of people, even tournament players, they might not finish this game.
Okay. So what's this one?
Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Okay, so this is the hardest one. Yeah, we could test then. No, you're good. You're pretty good with this game, right?
Yeah, I'm not bad.
Okay. It's the hardest Street Fighter 2. You can still do it. Yeah. Let's get a test for the controller. See the 8Bitdo, how well it works.
Yeah, the D-pad has a problem right now. I can tell right away. It's the same problem with the old D-pad. See, my Dragon Punch is dropping. This D-pad doesn't work.
Okay. So yeah, I already felt it was a little bit uncomfortable. It's a bit stiff.
Yeah. That's why when you hear these like reviewers online, and they're saying dumb things like, "Oh, it feels clicky. It's good." That's not true. Clickiness has nothing to do with responsiveness. See?
But the guy also said he was responsive. But then again, he wasn't playing Street Fighter. He was playing Mario.
Exactly. You're playing Mario. It means nothing. You gotta play this. There's split-second timing that you need.
Yep. And most of the commenters, of course, are not going to notice this because they don't really play Street Fighter.
Can you see what I'm doing? I'm trying to trap him. I'm doing a fireball trap to bait him to jump, and then after that, There's only a split-second timing after the fireball that I can do a dragon punch. So like if I'm even off by a bit, it's not gonna come out. And I'm gonna get hit. Like that, right there. This is horrible. This is horrible.
Okay.
This is bad.
Okay.
30 crow. Again, I dropped the fireball right there. I dropped the fireball. When you drop fireballs, there's something wrong with the D-pad. Yeah, not very good. Yeah, this is not very responsive, the D-pad. It's a bit sluggish. I can tell even from the jumps, everything feels slow. I mean, here, it's just practice. But even when I do that jump, I'm hitting all my combos. Yeah, I'm hitting all the 3 combos.
But you're saying some of them are dropping?
Yeah. See these regular moves? This is what's dropping. See the dragon punch right there? I have to really be very deliberate. I gotta slow down my movement for the control pad. Because the problem is the D-pad is too slow. It's sluggish. So I have to slow down my execution just to match up. Because the D-pad can't catch up with execution. See, yeah, I dropped it again in a second. I dropped it again. So I gotta go slow. It's ridiculous. It's a giant D-pad.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely not usable.
Okay, does it feel more responsive? So how's it?
So it's way better than the 8Bitdo. That's not even close.
Yep.
But for some reason, I don't think it's a problem with the D-pad. Like I'm already everything's faster. I'm jumping, moving faster. So I think the difference is maybe the way they design the ergonomics. It's a little bit harder for me to access the D-pad. So then because of that, I'm sometimes jumping by accident when I'm trying to do a move. The D-pad response itself is fine.
Okay.
It's just the placement. I think for me personally, maybe the size of my hands.
Okay.
It makes it really easy for I'm jumping by accident sometimes. Which I don't have any problems with the previous, the other Hori pad that I have.
Okay.
Because the shape is different.
You don't have a fighting commander, right? This is the first time with a fighting commander?
Yeah, exactly. Mine's a little bit different. Mine's a different shape. But I just have to be careful. I gotta be more mindful. So I gotta hold it differently. See, now I'm okay. I'm holding it differently, and now it's okay.
Yeah. The main thing I noticed just from the feel is the buttons are bigger, and I mean they don't have analog sticks, but they use the space to have bigger buttons for the D-pad and the controls. So yeah, so it's a lot more comfortable.
Well,
comfortable for me.
It's just way better quality. That D-pad for the 8Bitdo is just faulty. See, I'm not really dropping moves. I'm just jumping by accident once in a while. But that's because it's just my thumb placement.
Okay.
D-pad is okay. D-pad is totally fine, like that. Yeah, this is like totally fine.
Okay.
Alright, now, so this pretty much passes. It's just the placement of the D-pad where like I gotta get used to it. Besides that, I can now go back out. Let's go to the game.
So the one guy said the 8Bitdo was the best controller for the Switch for 2D games.
Which is impossible because this D-pad is junk. It's literally junk. This is exactly the same bad D-pad that I had back when I was in, when I got in Japan.
But it's actually worse than the old SNES controllers too.
This is actually way worse than the old SNES controller.
Okay.
Way worse. Because back in the old SNES, I can play Street Fighter 5.
Okay.
Yeah. And this one, you can't because if you're trying to do the move really fast, yeah, this is a problem. Unless it needs to be broken in, but I don't know. But I wouldn't bet on it. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd rather get something where I know for sure I don't have to break it in, like a Hori.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. For me, just by feel alone, I didn't even play any games yet, but just by feel alone, I could feel that was very stiff.
This D-pad is pretty much so bad that it's at a point where it's pretty much this D-pad is faulty. It's almost defective. And at the same time, this D-pad, the other problem is definitely worse than almost all the stock controllers that you get for free with the console. So this is worse than any PlayStation controller ever.
We also can try out the Pro controller and test it out against that too.
Yeah, the Pro controller, remember, wasn't too bad. Just the D-pad itself was kind of small. That was the only problem.
Okay.
The response was actually okay.
Yeah, because I think the Pro controller is better too. So.
Yeah. It was fine. It was fine. Oh, Pro controllers are way better than this one.
Yeah.
Way better. Like, it's not the best because it's a little bit small, but at the same time, in terms of response, it's not faulty.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Hori is just way more comfortable, right? So, for 2D games. I mean, it's designed for 2D games. It doesn't even have analog stuff.
This is designed for 2D and fighting game, exactly. So there's no way this is even going to come close to playing 2D games for this. This D-pad alone is actually worse than a stock D-pad for 3 controller.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Cool. Is this hardest difficulty?
This one? I'm not sure. Maybe not. Maybe just not.
Yeah.
See, this is a totally different ball game here. Like, this pad is a completely different level.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a professional D-pad.
Hmm.
You can enter tournaments with this.
Hmm. I mean, all those YouTubers must be paid by 8Bitdo or something. Or they're, yeah, like you said, they're too into the retro style of the look.
Exactly. They're being fooled by the retro look, and they think everything's just good, and they might not play hardcore games well enough.
Or they're testing with Super Mario.
Exactly.
It doesn't tell us anything.
Or some people don't even test it with the game at all. They just click it a little bit, and they say it's clicky, and they say it's good.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
Hmm.
See, like that. That's what I'm talking about. That's split-second timing for the Dragon Punch.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So you saw that move right there, right? Did the Dragon Ball trap, it jumps over Dragon Ball, and instantly it did the Dragon Punch.
Yeah.
That's the type of stuff that this is not capable of because it's not fast enough and it's actually kind of faulty. Because this one's actually not responsive at all. You can't pull stuff like that in this one.
Okay. So yeah, clearly you can see that my friend did not like the 8Bitdo D-pad at all. He said it was one of the worst D-pads he ever used, and he highly preferred the Hori Fighting Commander. So that's what I say, always buy these products and test them in person. Don't just take all these reviewers' words and take them with a grain of salt, because all they do is really show you the features, and they might test out some games, but they're not really intensive ones. So always get your opinion from someone who has played really intensive games with it, or try it out with really intensive games, and that's how you really know how good a controller is. And get your opinion against someone who's actually played with a bunch of other controllers before. Because if it's one of a few controllers that they played, or if it's the only controller they played, then they don't have any frame of reference to compare it against. So yeah, that's it, guys. I just wanted to give you guys my friend's opinion and the real truth about the 8Bitdo SN30. All the reviewers online praise it highly. All the Amazon reviewers, whatever reviews you see online, most people will praise it. But in actuality, I don't think it is actually the best controller for the Switch, or even in general. I think that all the Hori controllers are better. The Razer controllers might even be better, and the Nintendo Switch Pro controller is even better. So yeah, I think the 8Bitdo controllers are probably just a little bit overhyped for what they are. So that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Looks like it.
Oh, yeah! Nice. Hey, easy, man.
Nice.
Last boss, man. Level 8, baby.
Hey, there's Shenmue again.
Yeah, I know.
Every time.
I don't think the camera's gonna come over this time.
Good. Yep. Yep. Okay.
Oh, you bastard!
Yep. Okay. Oh, he's super fast. You know.
Oh my god. But then I dropped two moves there at the end again. It's strange.
Okay. Good. Oh. The super one. Okay. Nice. Oh. Come on, clutch, baby, clutch.
Too slow. The controller doesn't work. The controller's not responding fast enough. Where's the game?
Oh no. Oh. Shit. One more. Oh,
yeah!
Nice. Oh, man. Finally.
You see, like, that last bit there?
Yeah.
When there's two things I said it was too slow. It's either the switch was responding too slow to the game, so I did my inputs too fast, and the game didn't respond, so nothing came out. Or there's a little bit input lag. Or controller needs a break-in. But I don't think it's a controller needs a break-in because I had the same issue with my Switch with the other controller with the converter at home. But once I swapped the PS5, totally fine. Everything came out. So yeah. Yeah, see? This is the hardest Street Fighter. Everything else is easy, all the other Street Fighter games.
Nice, I've never seen the ending, so.
Seeing the ending is easy, but then just seeing someone actually finish it on the hardest difficulty for Super Turbo is pretty rare.
Yeah. But in the arcades, they wouldn't have this difficult anyways, right?
No, it'll be medium, but even medium for this game is super hard because this is the hardest Street Fighter ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Japan, I was able to finish this without losing a single credit. When I went to Japan in 2017, so I found this old mall in Nakano. And then they had this one, and I played, and yeah, finished it with 1 credit.
So earlier this year, I made a video about the 8Bitdo SN30 versus the Hori Fighting Commander controller. So these are two controllers for the Nintendo Switch. The 8Bitdo is a very popular one that's been recommended by a lot of people online. And the Hori Fighting Commander, maybe not as well known as the 8Bitdo, but I bought both of them. And I lent it to my friend who's a huge fighting aficionado to try it out. And then I made this review. So in the review, I basically highlighted how it's the 8Bitdo is a really popular controller. I mean, just take a look here, right? Like you do a search for 8Bitdo, the controller, and you have all these popular YouTube channels praising it. It says, oh, Wolfden says the best Nintendo Switch controller. He's been praising it a lot. And look at this Spawn Wave. I think I talked about this guy on my video as well. He basically didn't even use this controller to test out anything. He just went over the features and stuff and then recommended it. A lot of these by Wolfden. And then Short Circuit, which is basically Linus Tech Tips, Switch Up. Like all these videos do like effusive in their reviews of the 8Bitdo, right? And I was talking about how a lot of these videos are basically flawed. They don't tell you anything about how the controller like is responsive. They don't test out the D-pad. They barely play any games with them. Like Anthony, okay, I know this guy's highly respected on Linus Tech Tips, but all he's doing is playing Mario. Do you think on Mario you really need like can you actually tell how responsive controller's D-pad is playing Mario? Not really, right? You need to play like a really intense game like Street Fighter, which is what my friend later did to test it out. Like Mario's not going to tell you much. Like it's not a very intense game when it comes to testing out a controller like this. And then I went over like this guy, Spawn Wave, right? He's just going over the features. He's not testing out like the responsiveness of the controller. Is not playing any games with them, any hardcore or intense games or anything like that. Not even casual games actually. He's just going over the features, and he says, "Oh, it's the best Nintendo Switch controller." Well, how is he even testing this, right? So then, lent it to my friend, and yeah, he basically said that that this controller had a defective D-pad. It wasn't just like a bad D-pad; it was a defective D-pad. It didn't even work. Yeah, I mean, I know he's more of a fighting game player, but the thing is, with this controller. Like, they're saying that this is the best retro controller, it's the best Nintendo Switch controller.
Yeah, see these regular moves? This is what's dropping.
Yeah, like, how can it be the best Nintendo Switch controller, the best retro controller, if it doesn't work for games like this, right? Obviously, a lot of people are going to be playing fighting games on Nintendo Switch. Now, I'm not saying that this controller is, bad for every game, right? So they have analog controls. Some people in the comments below say, oh, I'm only using it for casual games and stuff like that for analog games. That's fine, but then you can't say that it's the best controller for the Switch then, because it doesn't work for every game, right? If the D-pad is defective, obviously it's not going to work for all the games on the Switch. A large part of the Switch's library is actually retro games. And actually, a lot of the reviews here even say this is the best controller for the Switch or the best for retro games, right? Like, here's this. If you do a search for a review of this 8-Bit Pro 2, right? Pretty close to the SN30. I think it's using pretty much the same D-pad and controllers. But yeah, it says it's the best controller for retro gaming. And then it talks about, oh, why the D-pad matters. I agree, the D-pad does matter for retro games. Of course, retro games use the D-pad. And then it talks about how, yeah, the SN30, it actually recommends the SN30. That's the controller I was testing with in my video. And it's saying how the 8Bitdo Pro 2 and the SN30, like, these are the best retro gaming controllers. But how can that be if the D-pad is defective, right?
I have to slow down my execution just to match up, because the D-pad can't match up.
Okay.
Execution. Yeah, I dropped it again a second. I dropped it again. So I gotta go slow.
So yeah, that's the thing. Like, the D-pad is obviously defective. It's not just my friend testing, by the way. I have other videos that show you guys exactly, like, it's not just my friend. Like, the D-pad is actually defective. Here's another review online, right?
Where it accidentally renders diagonals.
This guy has issues. This guy has issues with the 8Bitdo SN30 as well,
with it,
right?
And if you try to switch directions quickly, you duck, and that stops you dead in your tracks.
Exactly. He's having issues with the D-pad as well, and then he has to fix them. There's another video, right? Here's another one. 8Bitdo SN30 Pro Plus D-pad fix. He has to use hot water, new toothbrush, a toothpaste in order to fix this. Like, that's kind of ridiculous, right?
Act is one. It's not.
He has to do all this just to fix the D-pad on here.
The fact that it has motion control.
Like, it's not just my friend, okay? So people who think it's just my friend, being like kind of nitpicky about the controller, it's not just him. I mean, look at all these other videos outside. Here's another guy. Oversensitive D-pad diagonal inputs.
What I think is happening here is, as you're pushing the left or right button initially, it's probably then registering the up or down movement
See?
more likely.
So if with all these people having issues with the D-pad on the 8BitDo, how can it then be the best retro controller, right? And then if you look online, right, and you have all these people recommending as the best Nintendo Switch controller, how can that be if the D-pad is not working? Now, like I said, we didn't really test the analog inputs. The analog inputs, the analog controllers could be good, but that's not the point here. The point is that people online are recommending the 8BitDo as the best overall controller, and it cannot be the best overall controller if the D-pad is defective. That's just, yeah, that's just the facts, right? They cannot be recommending this as the best overall controller, like the best Nintendo Switch controller. Can't be. The D-pad is defective, right? And even if the analogs and stuff stick and everything else works, right? Why not just use the Nintendo Pro controller? The Nintendo Pro controller is even better, right? The stock, I'm not gonna say the Joy-Cons, right? The Joy-Cons are not that great either, but the Nintendo Pro controller is a better controller than the 8BitDo. So even if you wanted to play more modern games, and you enjoy using the analog sticks on the 8BitDo, well then there's an even better controller with analog sticks and a better D-pad. It's the Nintendo Pro controller, right? Might as well just get the Nintendo Pro controller, which actually has a functioning D-pad, instead of the SN30 or the Pro 2, which has defective D-pads. So yeah, it's not just my friend. Like I said, I found all these videos online, other people have the same issues, and yet you still have people online recommending the Pro 2 and the SN30 like as the best Nintendo Switch controller or best controller for retro games. It just doesn't make any sense. So that's what me and my friend are wondering, like, is 8BitDo paying people to like say these kind of things? Is 8BitDo actually paying people off online, right? Like, how can they be like, there be so many people recommending this controller when it's clearly defective? So that's the thing I gotta add on to my video here, right? People in the comments below saying we're being a little bit too nitpicky or stuff like that, or hey, I'm only using it for modern games, I'm not using it for retro games. Fine, but we're not going to recommend this controller because it's just not the overall best controller, right? If you really need a controller for modern games, just go with the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. It's better. It's got a functioning D-pad, and the analog sticks are going to be just as good, if not better, than the ones on the 8BitDo. So why not just go for Nintendo Pro controller, right? Like, the only reason I can think of people loving the 8BitDo so much in the face of so much, like, even in the comment section, I always see people in the comment section in these videos saying how the 8BitDo is a great controller and stuff, but, you know, it malfunctions or something, but that's okay. Like, I think people really try to love the 8BitDo controller because of how it looks, because it looks retro, right? They really want to love it. So they'll forgive all the mistakes and stuff like that, all the defective inputs or bad response times, like misfire inputs. Like they forgive all these issues because they love the look, and that's the issue, right? They really should not be giving a free pass to the 8BitDo. And then for the Hori controllers, like they'll be so nitpicky. You'll see people online being like really nitpicky with the Hori controllers. Like Wolfden, for example. Wolfden is that guy's channel, praises the 8BitDo all the time, and then for the Hori ones, he'll be like so picky about it, right? It's a double standard. So that's the thing. If you guys really want to just play modern games, okay, and if you don't use the D-pad, just want to play on modern games, I would still recommend the Nintendo Pro controller. It's even more ergonomic actually than the 8BitDo is. Just get the Pro controller, right? And if you're playing retro games, do not get the 8BitDo, okay? Because the D-pad is just defective. Get a Hori Fighting Commander. The Hori Fighting Commander is way better than the 8BitDo. I mean, we tested it. This is my friend using the Hori Fighting Commander, right? Just works perfectly. You can get everything off perfectly. So that's it. Don't believe these people online. I'm pretty sure they're paid by 8BitDo or something, or they really want to like the look of the controller, so they give it a free pass on everything else. Like, don't believe this stuff online, praising the 8BitDo, saying it's the best controller for retro gaming. That's complete BS. Like I said, there's issues with the D-pad. Instead, if you really want to play retro games, get the Fighting Commander. If you want to play modern games, get the Pro controller. That's what I'll recommend. Oh, here's another video. 8BitDo just released the best Nintendo Switch controller ever, the Pro 2, and then
gonna be this excited for a brand new controller.
Of course he's talking about the features, right?
Controllers as often as I would, but we also have 3 profiles that we could save to.
He's just talking about the features. He's not even testing it. talking about the responses.
It's the Pro controller instead of
Oh
Joy-Con.
wow,
I
he's
don't
using
use Joy-Cons for anything.
Okay, well, okay, he is testing it with Pac-Man. Okay, obviously not a game that requires very fast responses. So anyways, even if they're testing it with games that are not very intense. So that's what I'm talking about. Basically, these reviews are worthless. Just talk about the features. You can get that off of the Amazon website. And then whenever they are testing with games, it's Mario or Pac-Man or something like that. Does not, like, any half-assed controller can do well in these games. Okay, it doesn't tell you like enough about how good these controllers are. They should be testing them with more games that require faster response times or inputs, like beat 'em ups or fighters. Actually, even shooters will give you a better impression of how fast the response of the inputs are, or the latency or lag or anything. Like, yeah, like fighters, beat 'em up shooters, those can all do. I think those are much better tests than something like Mario or Pac-Man. Alright, so here's another online review praising the 8Bitdo SN30, a lovingly crafted Super Nintendo style controller for retro gaming. Pros, looks and feels even better than the original controller. Well, it certainly looks like the original SNES controller, but I'm not sure if it feels better, because my friend has played hours and hours of old school Nintendo, Super Nintendo, or arcade games. Like, he's been a hardcore gamer pretty much his entire life. So he's told me that the SN30, SN30 Pro, the 8Bitdo D-pad, is nothing like the original SNES controller. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how accurate this statement is. It certainly looks like the original controller. I'm not sure if it feels like it though. Even 8Bitdo says on their website actually that it feels just like the original SNES controller, but I'm not sure how accurate that is. My friends told me it feels nothing like the original SNES controller. On the other hand, he said that the SNES Mini controller feels just like the original SNES controller, or he's sometimes even more responsive than the original SNES controller. He says he likes the SNES Mini controllers even better than the original SNES controller. So, you know, it's not like they were out here trying to bash every third-party controller here. Obviously, we have praise for the Hori controllers. Hori's controllers have designed really well. And the SNES Mini controllers are designed really well too, and they're very responsive, feels just like the original SNES controller. The 8Bitdo controllers, though, the SNES style controllers, I think have issues. And we've tried many different types of these controllers already. The SN30, the SN30 Pro, and the Pro 2. So my friend's tried the Pro 2 before, and he's tried the original SN30 as well as the SN30 Pro. And yeah, he said all of them have defective D-pads. So some people in the comments said, oh, maybe you have defective controllers. We don't have any issues, or I don't have any issues with these controllers. Well, even if we happen to get defective ones, we had 3 different defective ones so far, the SN30, the SN30 Pro, and the Pro 2. How can all 3 of them be defective? And I don't know, it just shows a lot. Even if we somehow happen to get 3 defective controllers, it shows you a lot about their quality control issues, right? So even then, we still wouldn't recommend it, because there's better controllers out there with better quality control issues, like the Hori controllers, for example. So that's why we still wouldn't recommend it. And by the way, we're not here to bash every 8Bitdo controller, just the ones that we've tested, which are all the Super Nintendo style ones, the SN30, SN30 Pro, and the Pro 2. Those are the ones that we had issues with. My friend also tried the M30, which is their Genesis style retro controller, and he says that one's actually pretty decent. The D-pad is fairly responsive on that one. So it's not like all the controllers are crap. It's just the ones that we tested, the Super Nintendo style ones, that seem to have issues. Anyways, we can take a look at this review, and I'm going to see how in depth do they go in this review here. So let's see. They go over their specs, they go over the connectivity, they go over the design and features, and that's it. So the only sentence I see here where they actually talk about the performance of this controller is this sentence here. Despite being surrounded by Bluetooth devices, I never felt any substantial latency or suffered from drop signals. Doesn't tell you what games he was playing. Doesn't tell you anything about the anything else about the controller, really, about the performance. I only get one single sentence here, and already being proclaimed as 5 stars. You'd think a 5-star review would go a little bit more in depth about the actual performance of the controller instead of just the design and features of it. But that's what I'm saying about a lot of these 8Bitdo reviews. They don't really go in depth. They just talk about the design, talk about the features, and then, oh, Spawnwave takes it apart on his channel, and that's it. Like, you don't actually see very much in depth about them and what types of games that they're playing. They don't talk about that. Here's another Engadget one. 8Bitdo's wireless SNES is perfect for Switch retro gaming. Again, disagree with that, because there's obviously issues with the D-pad. And it's not just us, right? Other people have had issues online. We've seen the YouTube videos. So even if we got defective controllers, well, they have quality control issues then, okay? And so we cannot recommend a controller that has so many quality control issues. Here's another review. This is Engadget. 8Bitdo's wireless SNES controller is perfect for Switch retro gaming. Yeah, we beg to differ. I mean, it's again, going over the design again, I think a part of it is the retro design. It makes these reviewers really gush over it really easily just by having the retro design. And let's just go over this review, okay? Okay, so this person, whoever this reviewer is on Engadget, says, this makes the likes of Ultra Street Fighter 2 2D indie games are wonderful to play on the SN30 Pro. I'm not sure, like, you guys have seen the video of my friend. He can't even pull off the simplest combos in Street Fighter 2 using this controller. So how is Street Fighter 2 a wonderful game to play on this controller? Like, again, maybe we got a defective one, I don't know. But we certainly, like my friend certainly couldn't get any Street Fighter 2 combos out. And he's a guy that's beaten Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the hardest difficulty, USA version. Not a lot of people can do that. Okay, he's played Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the hardest difficulty, and he's able to beat that. So he's a pretty hardcore Street Fighter 2 player. I have a video of that in my channel if you guys want. Yeah, like, I don't know. What kind of moves are these guys doing from Street Fighter 2? Like, just Hadoukens? And how fast are they able to get these Hadoukens out? What about other combos? Like, again, you can say this kind of stuff, but I'm not sure. Like, my friend actually tested this. He's pretty much near pro level Street Fighter 2 player. So, and he can't even get them to work. Like, he couldn't even get the simplest combos going with that. And it says, the SN30 Pro maintains that unusual combination of spongy and spring just like you remember it. Yeah, I mean, certainly if you compare it to the Joy-Cons, sure. But if you compare it to the original SNES controller, yeah, my friend would probably disagree with that. And yeah, the Joy-Con's D-pad isn't even a real D-pad, so saying that the SN30's D-pad is better is really not saying much, because the Joy-Cons don't really even have a real D-pad, right? It's just 4 buttons. Yeah, and it says, it is a smart choice for a second gamepad. One is perfect for retro games. So again, so another review that says that this is the best controller for retro games on the Switch. Of course, we find that hard to believe. Like, first of all, you didn't compare it to any other controller on the Switch. Like we said, we compared it to the Hori Fighting Commander. The Hori Fighting Commander was a lot better. All these reviews don't really compare it to other controllers at all, and somehow they say it's the best one for retro games. And the games that you play, like this guy says he played Ultra Street Fighter 2. Okay, so are you able to just do some Hadoukens like in practice mode, or are you actually able to beat some CPUs? Like, how far did you actually get in the game? That's the thing. When these people play games using these controllers to review, are they actually going through each level? Like, how far are they actually going in the game? Or are they just saying, oh, this button works for jumping, this button works for shooting, oh, this controller works. Like, that's not a real review of the controller, right? Like, to actually review the controller, you have to be able to actually play the game, right? And get through the levels in the game. So I want to know in Street Fighter 2, like, how many CPUs did he beat? You know, to what level of difficulty did he go to? Like, I want to kind of know that, because if you're just saying, oh, I can do a Hadouken in practice mode or whatever, like, it really doesn't say much, right? It's just like saying, oh, this controller button works. Yeah, sure, it should work, but it doesn't really tell us like how much latency there is, how responsive it is, until you actually go through the game and play it. So that's the issue here. I mean, we're just saying that the SN30, SN30 Pro cannot be considered the best Nintendo Switch controllers if they have issues with the D-pad, right? And I understand not everyone plays hardcore, intense fighting games. You know, some people maybe they just want to use it for Mario or Sonic or Pac-Man or whatever, and that's totally fine. But if you do that, you cannot just go and say, oh, this is the best Nintendo Switch controller ever, right? Because you haven't played all the different kinds of games with it, and you didn't compare it with other controllers. So how do you know it's the best Nintendo Switch controller ever, right? That's the problem with all these reviews. They don't go over the intense games, right? Like Street Fighter 2 or Contra, for example, you would definitely notice any kind of D-pad issues. They don't go over those kind of games, so they don't go over the wide range of games that you would be necessary to determine whether or not this would be the best Switch controller, and they don't compare it with other controllers. So how do you know that it's the best Nintendo Switch controller? How do you know it's the best retro controller? See, That's the problem I have with these kind of videos, right? That's the issue here, is you're recommending this controller saying it's the best one when really you didn't do a thorough in-depth comparison, right? Like, yeah, sure, SpawnWave just takes it apart on this channel. That doesn't tell us anything about how it's the best Nintendo Switch controller, right? I'm not sure about this new one, right? I'm going to reserve my judgments for that. But at least when it comes to the Pro 2, which my friend has used before, the SN30 and SN30 Pro, which we have tested before, we cannot recommend it as the best Nintendo Switch controller or the best retro controller. Like I said, if you want a controller with a great D-pad, just go for the Hori Fighting Commander. Or even the SNES Mini controller is really good, but apparently that one is specific to the SNES Mini. So the Switch Pro controller, the D-pad isn't that great, I know, but at least it's working, right? We cannot say that about the 8BitDo controller that we used because it wasn't even registering the correct inputs, or it was misregistering inputs. We don't recommend the SN30, SN30 Pro, or the Pro 2. Now the M30, on the other hand, is a pretty decent controller, has a pretty decent D-pad. I'm not sure about this new one, we haven't tested it yet. But at least when it comes to the SNES style retro controllers that they have, we cannot recommend them. And that's really what we wanted to get across here in this video. So if 8BitDo did send us defective controllers, and if all these guys are also playing defective controllers, then 8BitDo has a quality control issue, okay? Like, how are there still like so many people online complaining about these D-pad issues, and we experienced it with 3 different 8BitDo controllers? That must tell you that there's a quality control issue. If everyone else, you know, assuming everyone else got good controllers and we just got the bad ones, the defective ones, that still means that there's a quality control issue, right? And if there isn't, then obviously they're lying on their page, because if you go to their page, it says, we paid extra attention to the most critical characteristics like the D-pad to make sure it feels exactly like you remember it. And this is straight from the home page of the SN30 Pro. Okay, this is the first screen you see on this page. So they said they paid extra attention to the D-pad. So people were saying, oh, you're being too critical, overly critical on the D-pad and stuff. Well, literally on the first screen you see on this product page, they said they paid extra attention to the D-pad. So we got to scrutinize it, right? And they said this is the best controller for retro games, right? Like, that's how they advertise it. The world's further featured retro controller, like, and that's how all the reviews talk about it, as the best retro controller. So it's only fair to scrutinize the D-pad this much. Like, even if the analog controls work well, we still have to scrutinize the D-pad, because they literally call themselves out here by saying that they paid extra attention to it. So we have to scrutinize it, right? And people here are saying the best Nintendo Switch controller, the best Nintendo Switch controller ever. So that's the issue here. Because people are like, oh, you're being too hard on these reviewers. They never said that it was the best controller for fighting games, or if it works for them, then, you know, that's all that matters. No, okay? On their reviews, they said it was the best Nintendo Switch controller. How can they say that if you're not playing all the different kinds of genres, right? If they're only playing like Wolf Den, if he's only playing platformers, how can you say that it's the best Nintendo Switch controller? You can't, right? Or if it only like, if it's not great for fighting games, how can it be the best Nintendo Switch controller? It doesn't make sense, right? You can't say stuff like that. If you want to say, hey, it works for platformers and it's good for like Pac-Man and stuff like that, then just say it's good enough for most people. Don't call it the best Nintendo Switch controller. Like, you're just overhyping it at that point. So that's all I want to call out. Okay, that's all we want to call out here. People, you know, are defending 8BitDo like crazy, and it's really ironic actually, because 8BitDo is a Chinese company. They just have really great marketing skills, and we love like Retrobit controllers, for example. I think my friend plays some Retrobit controllers. We love them. They're an American company, and we don't say anything bad things about them. Nobody's fanboying over them. Okay, same thing with Hori. Hori's a Japanese company, well established. We love their controllers. Nobody fanboys over them, but for this Chinese company, everyone fanboys over them. It's kind of ironic, and I don't really get it. But I think it's partly due to 8BitDo's marketing that it kind of got people brainwashed and like fanboying over them. So that's all I want to add. Is like, you have people online saying it's the best Nintendo Switch controller ever, the best retro controller ever. Clearly it's not. If you're not going to play every kind of game with it, especially fighting games, which are retro games, like there's so many, like most of the fighting games actually released are from the 90s, right? Those are the classic fighting games. Those are retro games. So how can you say it's the best retro controller if it only works for a subset of games, right? You can't say that. So that's why I want to respond to the people in the comments below saying we're being too harsh on the D-pad. Well, 8BitDo themselves advertise it like this, so we have to scrutinize it. They really set themselves out for that. Like, they called special attention to the D-pad, saying it's just like the original, which it isn't. So we have to scrutinize it. People saying we got defective units. Well, that just says there's a quality control issue with this controller. I haven't seen people saying they have issues with Hori or Retrobit controllers online, but I see a lot of people saying they have issues with the 8BitDo controllers online. So yeah, if it's so great, then how come there's so many defective D-pads out there on their controllers? And these reviewers, no, I'm not being harsh on these reviewers. I'm giving them proper scrutiny they deserve when they have titles like it's the best retro controller, best Nintendo Switch controller ever, and they don't do a thorough job reviewing it. I'm giving them their fair scrutiny, okay? So don't say we're being too harsh or whatever just because you love Wolf Den or you love Spawn Wave or Mad Little Pixel. I'm not trying to, you know, to like really shit on these guys, because, you know, I'm sure these guys are just trying to like make a living and try to be objective and fair, but we have to give them their fair scrutiny because they're not thoroughly reviewing these devices and then saying it's the best one. So they're not doing a comparison, they're not playing all the different genres of the games, and then they say, oh, it's the best Nintendo Switch controller. And yeah, guys, that's all I have to say about this controller. I mean, I'm just trying to be fair here, okay? Like, because you have all these reviews praising the 8BitDo like no tomorrow, we just want to be fair and basically call them out, you know? Like, because there are issues with the controller. Like, if you just go by the reviews online, you think that it was perfect. It isn't. There's lots of issues with the controller. These guys never talk about it. So, and some people, like, even the guys, some of the guys who have issues with the controller still recommend it, even though they had to like fix the D-pad and stuff and take it apart. Like, obviously, it's I don't know how you can, in good conscience, do that. But anyways, we just wanted to call these reviewers out. Like, I don't think these are objective and fair reviews. So that's it, guys. Yeah, if you want to go back and watch our original video on the 8BitDo, then yeah, you can check it out. It's on my channel. My friend is trying to play Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo on it, obviously having issues with the D-pad, pulling off the moves. And yeah, that's really how we found out that, I mean, just like the rest of you guys, we bought this controller based on the hype, and yeah, turns out that we don't think that it's living up to the hype. So that's it, guys. As always, leave your comments in the comment section below. I'll try to address them, and as always, thanks for watching.